Hello and welcome to this week's Reading with Reference. I'm Jennifer Coons, one of the reference librarians at the Haverford Township Free Library. And last week I talked about a book by Joe Hill, which was a collection of horror stories. This week I thought I would go in a different direction and talk about the horror inside our heads and how to effectively maybe deal with that. So I think it's safe to say that most of us are feeling some uncertainty these days, whether it's job insecurity or confusion about our health and how to protect our health of our family members. So I thought I would choose a book, I would revisit a book published back in 2002 by Pema Chodron called Comfortable with Uncertainty. Pema Chodron is a Buddhist nun and resident teacher at Gampo Abbey based in Nova Scotia. It's one of the first Tibetan monasteries for Westerners in North America. She follows the tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. She's given many talks, written books, or a lot of her talks have been made into books. So the overall gist of this book is that life itself is inherently uncertain, and we deal with big uncertainties like we're going to die sometime. Well, that actually is a certainty, but how we're going to die, you don't really know, and there's also more mundane uncertainties that of course we're all aware of today, and also just the way the world works. Like there's certain things that we want to be a certain way that aren't a certain way. There are ways that we wish people would behave, especially our children, our co-workers, and these things don't often go the way we want them to go. We want to be certain about how they're going to go, and things don't always work out. So what happens is we feel discomfort, and this comes in the form of difficult emotions like fear and anger, and that often drives how we then behave and are in the world. And we also use ways to get around that and to not feel those uncomfortable feelings in the forms of different kinds of addictions, or just endlessly scrolling through social media, streaming Netflix movies and television shows endlessly and things like that. So Pema Chodron, she writes and speaks in the most gentle, compassionate, easy way, so that you never feel like she's on some mountaintop of enlightenment and is talking down to you. The book itself is made up of 108 discrete little teachings, sort of instructions, and they're no more than one page each. So you could even, if you picked up the book, you could just like look at one and just have that be a one-off, or you could read it in order, however you want to do it. But it's basically, the lesson is to grow away from the self-preoccupation that's coming from our discomfort about the way the world is that we don't like, and moving towards being more open-hearted and being in fellowship with all beings, which, yes, sounds hokey, but really ends up being a really useful treatment for all forms of mental and emotional discomfort. So earlier I used the phrase horror inside our heads, and there's one example in the book that I think is really interesting, where she tells an old Zen story of a big burly samurai goes into a Zen master and says, "What is the difference between heaven and hell?" And the Zen master says, "Well, why would I tell you, you big, ugly, burly nothing? You're just a worm. I wouldn't waste a minute talking to you at all." And goes on like that. And the samurai becomes enraged and angry, and he pulls out his sword and he's about to cut the Zen master's head off, to which point the Zen master says, "That is hell." Then immediately the samurai completely acknowledges what has happened. He realizes that was hell in his head, and he sort of starts to tear up and bows in gratitude towards the Zen master, at which point the Zen master says, "And that is heaven." So I thought that was a really interesting illustration of how we make ourselves crazy, and we respond to other things that make ourselves crazy. So this is basically a book about meditation, with an emphasis on how to approach meditation in a non-judgmental, curious, friendly way, so you're not necessarily beating yourself over the head that you're not doing it right. She's really great in that way. One of the things that she continually reminds is to just start where you are, that you can be the most depressed person in the world, you can hate yourself, you can be a violent person, and just start wherever you are. And that's every place is a good place to start. She also talks about making sure to not be too hard on yourself if you're not doing it the right way. For those readers who are not experienced meditators, she says this book is news you can use, but also recommends finding a meditation teacher or class somewhere, and I will post resources for finding such places on the Facebook for everybody. Just right now, I'll say there's the Philadelphia Meditation Center right here in Havertown. University of Pennsylvania offers a mindfulness-based stress reduction meditation course. Clear Light Meditation in Wayne also gives some good classes and has meditation teachers. Some of these are free, some of them aren't, but I'll post more information with contact. So that is my little book review this week. Comfortable with Uncertainty by Pema Chodron.